would be interesting is how do you stay motivated and overcome creative blocks when working on a long-term project, such as a large graphic novel, like 100 pages or more, or multiple issues of a series, or even a mini series or monthly book? How do you guys stay motivated and overcome any kind of creative block with that? Let's start with Nandor on that one.
So I really have to look at the bigger picture. I really have to think, okay, if I'm going to pursue, this big of a story, um, it's not going to happen overnight. It might take all year, and you sort of have to like mentally prepare yourself, for what that might entail. And you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to be able to get this done, in this amount of time, and it'll all be fine and dandy, because your story is going to suffer for it. And so looking at the bigger picture, looking at like, okay, I'm going to write this, maybe in the next few months or this year. It probably, once the art is done, it probably won't come out till next year or maybe the year after. And so you really have to think about the long game, when it comes to staying motivated and realizing that these things don't happen overnight, and you can't rush your artist, you can't rush your creativity, because it will suffer for it, and you'll agitate other people and you won't be much fun to work with if you're like, hey, I need to get this done, it's like, yeah. It's not on your own timetable, it's you. When you're collaborating, it might be different for a writer artist, who is doing it all. That's definitely a different story in my case, because when you're working with an artist, it's like you really have to be able to be patient, and your writing, really isn't done until you get the lettering back, and it's like you're never done. You're never done until the book is in your hands, really, or off to the printer, and you're like, okay, now I can kind of set this aside. And maybe that took 2 or 3 years. Like I wrote The Fabled Offering in 2022, or like summer of 2022, and it's just going to be coming out this year. And it's like, it's crazy, it's like, but it's also very rewarding. You're like, wow, I did that. Like I actually stuck with it, and I stuck to my guns, and I actually made this happen. And this is going to be something that, is worth it. I mean, there's not a better feeling than when you get the book in your hands. Like that makes every ounce of, blood, sweat, and tears that you poured into this thing worth it, because you're like, I stuck with it. And once you get your first book out and you get that feeling, and you're like, okay, I've made it, I can do this. It gets easier. You get more confident in yourself, and you're able to, motivate yourself to continue. And so, I think you do have to also let things fly. It's like you wrote your story, or you are working on this big epic. Seasons is going to be it's like over 400 or 500 pages. I have the first 2 volumes out, but I'm still working on fall and winter. And like that's been a lifelong work for me in a lot of ways, because I started working on it when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I just turned 27. And so it's like, when will this ever get done? And it feels like forever. So I just have to remind myself that it's going to take a long time, and that you have to remember why you're here, why you're doing this. What is it that brought you to this point? Don't give up. You really have to remind yourself, like, I can do this. Don't give up. I've done it before. If you have a book, if you don't have a book out, look at other people and see, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, of course you can do it. I mean, making comics is really difficult. It is really hard, but it's not at the same time. Once you're able to kind of get over that hump and figure out what, is your strengths and what you need to work on, from then on, it can get easier, and it can be a lot more fulfilling. So you just, like I said, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look at, okay, I want to table at that convention. You want to have a goal, I want to do a book signing here. I want to, and so you're like, I'm going to stick to that. And then when you finally get there, it's just, there's no better feeling. So that's what I'd encourage everyone to think about.
Yeah. Great. Well said. George, same question.
I think what keeps me motivated when I'm stuck on something else is having another project that I'm kind of developing, right? Because if I'm stuck on this one, I can always jump on that one and work on that a little bit. The other thing I like to do is, read, somebody else's book. Go and check out Star Noir. Nandor, your man child. You know what I mean? Johnny the Pond, Mighty Mascots. Like, read something else. If these guys are doing it, I can get this done. You know what I mean? This year I'm trying to hit up at least one convention, not the table necessarily, but just walk the floor, because just that energy, just that creative energy on that floor makes me
Yeah,
want to go home and do something. Like,
that's a great
walking
point.
up to somebody's table and hearing the pitch and looking at their book,
Yeah.
it just fills you with that. Yo, I got to get mine out. I got to do mine. So
Yep.
I use that as motivation. These shows, like, there's so many things. We hate social media, but on social media, you go into somebody's page and you scroll through some of their images, artwork, links. Let me
Yeah.
go take a look at that. There's so much creative stuff out there that, when I'm stuck and I don't know, man, writing wise, I can always do that, do all those things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of people asking, do you ever get bored? I'm like, no, because I'm constantly either thinking about something that I want to create, or I'm watching somebody else create, or you know what I mean? Like, there's no time for it. So yeah, that I try to do that, and that helps. That helps.
That's a great point, because I always feel more creative after a
Oh, dude,
convention.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially when I'm not tabling. Like, when I'm tabling at a convention, it's exhausting. But if I'm just walking around that thing, bro, like, I
Just
love this.
buying books and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hell yeah.
absolutely.
I'm
How
gonna.
about you,
That's
Tony?
my
Oh,
specific. Sorry, didn't interrupt. I'm gonna say, George, that's my specific goal now for C2E2, because I didn't get the table, so now I'm just
Oh, okay.
going to
All right.
go,
Yeah,
and I'm
me
just gonna
too.
kind of drink it in. Like, okay, it's nice to not have to, be
Yeah,
worried about making a table number and just,
exactly.
running around looking
yeah,
at other people,
network.
meeting artists, finding new
Hmm.
potential collaborators.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great idea, Johnny. Tony, same question.
I always try to imagine what the book looks like when it's done. And whenever I kind of feel like kind of fatigued or want to quit, I just kind of remember, like, okay, just imagine what it looks like when it's all done, and everyone can see what the full picture looks like. It's very easy for me to get lost in the weeds of very tiny details, and I'm obsessing over pinstripes on Alan's suit on one panel, and you think that, like, that'll bring down the whole story, and um
Yeah.
and then and then always kind of telling myself, in times where I feel, like quitting, like, why don't you just quit tomorrow? Like, we'll do today, and then maybe we'll quit tomorrow. And so that kind of like procrastination sort of helps. But yeah, I mean, like, motivation for me with writing, it comes very naturally for me, because it's the only time that the shoe feels like it's on the right foot. I have pretended to do other jobs in the past, and it's just felt wrong. It didn't feel like, well, you're just doing this job and then you're doing the writing thing. It's like, no, you're pretending, and you need to stop doing what you're doing, and you need to only be writing. So when it comes to motivation for me, it's like, no, that it just feels like what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, yeah.
And keeping the motivation is just keep keeping your eye on the prize. Just remember what it's going to look like when it's done.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, and Amy will tell you this, like, when I'm at like my regular corporate job, I am finding loopholes on how to get out of shit. I'm late all the time. Anything, because it's not what I want to do.
Right.
But when I'm writing, lettering, doing putting Plastic City together, I am putting like 1,000% into it, like, so that just shows you that dichotomy there. But yeah, all great stuff. One thing I wanted to add to the motivation part is I think it gets easier to be motivated and overcome creative blocks the more you make comics. Like, when you get past your first issue and then you're doing your sixth issue of something, it gets easier because you kind of know the expectations.
Yeah.
You got to wait for artwork from the artists,
Yeah.
And then like George said, you're always working on something else on the side while that's finishing up, you know? So yeah, it gets easier. Once you get that first one under your belt, then it's like kind of gold, you know?
Previously on the
After
Mighty
that,
Mascots.
The fearless robot Boom found himself in dire straits after a bullet struck him during a fierce battle with Lana Lennon in issue 6. The impact compromised his targeting system, throwing his precision and control into disarray. Suddenly, a new threat emerged. With no time to waste, Boom makes the decision to have the bullet removed and take his chances with the glitch in his personality matrix. Boom's transformation has set the stage for an epic new chapter, and the story continues in Mighty Mascots issue 10. Issue 10 is a triple-sized anniversary extravaganza, featuring all new content by the same great creative team you know and love. Dive into a thrilling news story and enjoy 2 exciting backup tales by DC Miller and the Ogle brothers. Choose from 2 stunning alternate covers that capture the essence of this landmark issue, with artwork by Gazbot and Angry Dad Comics. Plus, we've got incredible new perks, including exclusive 3D printed Breakfast Brawler figures. There are 8 figures available in 4 sets. Buy them all to receive a bonus glow in the Dark Mondo figure. And that's not all. Catch up on back issues, grab limited collectibles, and immerse yourself in the Mighty Mascots universe like never before. Support the Mighty Mascots issue 10 on Indiegogo and be a part of this groundbreaking journey.